Okay, part one of the HSWC Global Sorcery / human trafficking / insurance fraud / homosexual witchcraft / Masons / money laundering / murder for hire, body disposal, traffic by land, sea, and air, and they're also known as the Legion of Kid Touchers. That was my original name for them, so I'm gonna go ahead and exercise that this evening. Okay, so since the time I was a little girl, whenever you exhibit certain characteristics in school, they automatically start to try to change your behavior and suppress who you naturally are, so that you become a sheeple like everybody else. But there are some of us who have a very, very strong will, and I would be one of those people. Perhaps one of the strongest wills in the world. Just being stupid. But seriously. So, I'm autistic and I have a very high IQ, but that doesn't really exactly matter. I'm very good at a few things that are complicated, like very good at them. But there are many things that I cannot do. But these things I can. We will call them human behavioral pattern reverberation vibration analysis. I don't know if that's a good name for it. We're going to redo that, but not yet. Basically, I don't need to talk to somebody to know exactly who they are, what they're lying about, and what they're going to do next, etc., etc., etc. Because human beings let out frequency vibrations, because all we are is vibrating Hertz frequency that vibrate just right into solid matter. And so whenever you're intuitive or an introvert and you have autism, autism is formed in utero, and it's just like a more advanced brain and nervous system. Like your brain structure is actually different than other people's, also called neurodivergence. It's like, so neurotypical is more, I don't want to say primitive, right? But essentially, yes, this is more advanced or futuristic. And so I'm able to handle more electricity or Hertz frequency vibration into my nervous system, right? And then to decode truth. So the vibration goes from your Holy Spirit or your stomach brain to your heart, where it's then given binary frequency codes that are then sent up to your brain and turned into third dimensional thought. And so if you think something around me, I will know what it is, because I can decode every frequency from every human being on planet Earth. It's just the way I was born. And so it's kind of like mind reading, but I can't read your whole mind. I can only read what you're thinking at that time. And I can also read your intention. So if you say something like, oh yeah, I'm going to go see a play later, but really you're going to go murder 6 puppies. And you're like, no, you're going to go murder 6 puppies. Because the words don't matter. It's the vibration. It's your intention. So whenever you're young and they notice some of these characteristics in kids, and they defect, right? Like they don't listen, they can't sit still, they just don't give a shit, like, about school. They're just, no, like, I'm curious. I asked a bunch of questions. Like, I would question people to death. I still do that, but I do it to myself now. And I couldn't sit still in school. I didn't even pay attention. I would just sleep the whole time and then go home and do the work and get it straight A's. And so they have been trying to suppress me since childhood. I'm not even sure I'm come from where I've been told I come from, but that's another story for another day. So my parents were paid, or my father was paid to do MK Ultra mind control on me, which was created by the CIA during the Cold War, and it was approved in 1953 by something Allen. And it was because they were afraid that U.S. prisoners being kept in North Korea were being subject to mind control, and so they created like counter mind control essentially. But there was a program before that, I think it was Blue Mockingbird, and then it was changed to Artichoke, and then they came up with MK Ultra, and they used like LSD and other psychotropic drugs along with psychotherapy to alter and control human behavior. So what is MK Ultra? It is psychotherapy basically exacted on the general public by the CIA so they can control you and they can do whatever the hell they want. And you're a primitive human being versus your divine self that could recognize the degeneracy that they're involved with and then totally ascend in your consciousness and become the best version of yourself, right? There are very few people on earth that actually live in their divine purpose. So there are some that do, yes. The elites, Hollywood, wealthy businessmen. Doesn't mean that they're involved in MK Ultra or anything like that. You could use like 50 Cent, for example. He's a businessman, definitely not involved in the homosexual witch coven or the Masons. And he's very wealthy, like worth, I don't know, $400 million or something like that. So anyways, my parents, or my father, my mom was already damaged in childhood. So she already triangulated, gaslit, was jealous, wanted to suppress me on her own due to the fact that she was abused and I wasn't, and I was really intelligent. But my mom was too, but she just was damaged. And she couldn't heal from it. Like, she chose not to, rather, which she didn't have the tools in her tool belt. So, anywho, my dad began gaslighting, triangulating, and lying to me about things. And, like, this is what they'll do. Andrea, you're such a good cook. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And then the next time, then they'll eat your food and be like, God, this tastes like shit. You're like, what? You just said I was a good cook. Well, you do things like that enough, and it causes cognitive dissonance, where what the person says and then what they say next don't go together. They're opposites, right? But then you're like, well, I thought you just said I was a good cook. Yeah, but you are. But this tastes like shit. Huh? You are. This tastes like shit. And you're like, well, how can I be a good cook if all the food you eat tastes like shit that I cook? That doesn't make sense. They do it with everything, right? Like, no, we went and saw Mission Impossible last night. No, we didn't. We saw Titanic. Oh, okay, so we saw Titanic. No, we saw Mission Impossible. What? So they always keep you off kilter, right? So you don't know what reality is. And it fractures your nervous system from your mind, which means you're only operating with half intelligence, right? So when you just use your brain, you can't feel your way through anything. The fear center in your brain actually overdevelops, and like, you basically are artificial intelligence. You really don't have instincts. You just have like fear-based primitive instincts, not divine instincts, because we're all endowed with a piece of creation with divine truth, and that resides in your nervous system. And so, because remember, when we're in spirit form, you need a vessel to house spirit, and then in the third dimension, you can't translate vibrations like your body can't speak like an angel can, like, oh, like with vibration. So you have to translate it into third dimensional thoughts and then words. And so how do you do that? Well, you take that vibration and you change it into a binary code, right, into math, essentially. And then that math goes up to your brain and it's like beep, bop, boop, and whatever it's for, that part of your brain will process it. And then the words that are used, the sounds that are used in the third dimension the representation will come out of your mouth. And so if they fracture that, then what? Now, an intuitive person who already has divine wisdom, right, absolute truth stored in their nervous system, can't access it anymore. Now you have to get all of your information from the third dimension, process it intellectually, and draw conclusions. Well, people who do that, they very seldom are doing the right thing because they cannot feel their way through anything. So they just become hyper intellectual, which isn't really intellectual. It's like psychopathy, right? So you got a bunch of people, AI running around, zombies, right? And over the generations, these zombies have become more and more primitive and more corrupted. That is exactly why we have simultaneously the most educated and dumbest people in history. And there's a reason for that. If everybody's going to college but everybody's stupid, why are we going to college? So what is going on here? Well, I'll tell you what's going on. You got a whole bunch of information that you can't use efficiently because you're not using, because it's all from the third dimension, and you're not using any fifth dimensional truth or feeling, because emotions do go with intellectual thought. They go together. So whenever you ask yourself a question like, I wonder, does this fit here? It seems like it does. Logically, that makes sense, but God, this doesn't feel right. It seems like there would be a better place for this. Well, without that feeling, you would only get an sort of almost good enough answer, right, or solution. You wouldn't have a divine solution because you have no access to divine information. So when I was a child, my father attempted to break my intuition, fracture it from my mind, but it didn't work. I'm not saying it didn't work at all. Like, I had a nervous systemic anxiety in my body, right? Because my mom was always doing shit to me, and then my dad. But when I was 14, my dad tried to convince me that I did drugs and, like, had sex at the mall, and I had never even had sex, and I had never done drugs. And I was like, no, I didn't. And he's like, yes, you did. And I was like, no, I didn't. He's like, yeah, we have it on camera. I'm like, okay, but I still didn't do it, which means you don't have it on camera. Can I see the camera footage? I'm telling you I saw it. Okay, well, I'm going to need to see it because I didn't do those things. So they were trying to get me, like, I had all these rules I had to follow, like, I was so strict, like, be home at this time, don't smoke cigarettes, don't have sex, don't do that. So I followed all the rules, right? But they didn't want me to follow the rules. They wanted me to break the rules. And when I didn't break the rules, they tried to make me believe that I had broken the rules, causing cognitive dissonance. And my father's extremely jealous of me because he's also got some issues. I think he's a psychopath. I think he was molested or raped as a child. And I think I absolutely destroyed him. And now he's a fucking monster, unfortunately, which is heartbreaking. And so he was jealous of my intellect too. So he would, like, tell people I was super smart and could do all these things I hadn't actually done. And I was like, dude, I didn't do that. Like, I didn't just build a supercomputer last night out of noodles, you know, or, like, I just made that up, but you know what I mean. And so he would tell me that, then he would, like, criticize me and be like, you're overly emotional and you can't think your way through that, and blah, blah, blah. And so nothing went together, right? So over time, I just stopped trusting my parents, and I only trusted myself. Because anytime I would trust somebody, they would do shit like that to me. Even kids at school, right? Because most people are not neurodivergent. Most of them are neurotypical. Most of them are sheep. But neurodivergent people are natural-born leaders. They're typically not alphas, right? Alpha is the neurotypical thing. They're typically introverts or introverted extroverts or